Talking coal this evening on the Moneymakers, and Mike Teke, who made a lot of money in coal in a previous life, is going back into the lion's den, buying coal mines from Anglo-American that will service Eskom. Isn't that a poisoned pill? Well, let's talk to Mike Teke, who is the new chief executive of the newly created Seriti Resources. This is a brand new entity, 79% black owned, probably unique in the South African context to this point, in that various groups have come together and created a 79%, 80% black-owned mining company, Mike.
I think we made a right call, and it was a great decision to come together, the four of us. That is Zungu Investments, Massimo, which is myself, CIH, Community Investment Holdings, and Teke Investments. We could have easily competed for these assets, but we felt that working together and creating this entity would be useful for the country.
I mean, that's the good PR line, or is this simply reducing your risk across the board? You could have tried to outbid each other, overpaid Anglo-American, they would have been grateful, but one of you would have ended up with too much skin in this particular game.
Well, we felt that we should put our skills together and make sure that we create, not only buying these three assets, but create a big black-owned mining company. That would probably be your champion in mining in South Africa. And beyond that, we will look at other assets together.
You're Mr. Coal. You got the optimum experience in this particular transaction. You're the guy with real feet in the ground on this one, aren't you?
Well, other people have, but they bring other sets of skills. I came through BHP Billiton, Ingwe Collieries, Optimum Coal, and a bit of Glencore there. And now it's Seriti Resources, and the team felt that I'm well positioned to be the chief executive officer of this business.
Why? I mean, I ask this because you are, by reputation, one of the wealthiest self-made men in South Africa as we speak right now, courtesy of the sale of Optimum Coal a couple of years ago. You don't need to do this. This isn't something that's going to put bread on the Teke household.
Working is my life. I love work. I'm a hard worker, and I feel that there's a great opportunity for me to contribute to the future of this country, especially in the energy space.
But you're contributing to the future in energy, in dirty energy, in energy that Eskom wants to discontinue. If what we read is to be believed in terms of a nuclear future, gradually getting away from coal, what's the sort of runway?
Bruce, we still have 72% of our energy, electricity generated out of coal.
For how long?
And coal is seen as a fossil fuel, obviously, and it's seen as not clean, but we'll work towards clean coal technology. People like us will identify opportunities to do that. Number two, there is a need for an energy mix. We will have nuclear, we'll have renewables as in wind, solar, but coal will still play an important role in this country. We still have coal in the Mpumalanga coal fields, we still have coal in the Waterberg, and the coal-fired power stations, we have almost more than 15 coal-fired power stations in this country.
Are we overly obsessed with nuclear? I mean, I was speaking to the chief nuclear officer at Eskom recently. He foresees in the next 20 years 50% as nuclear in the energy mix, and it doesn't feel necessary in a coal-rich country as we have.
Well, we feel that we want to create an energy mix, as I said, renewables, nuclear, coal. It's not an obsession with nuclear. I still believe that we are a coal country, and that is why I would like us to invest more on identifying opportunities to create what we call clean coal environment.
What about the contracts with Eskom? Anglo-American's got these contracts. There are 4 contracts. 4 of the collieries that you bought are tied to Eskom and tied to supply contracts. How secure are those contracts?
Well, those contracts are secure. Hence, as part of the conditions of this transaction, we need to be talking to Eskom. We go in there with an open mind to have a discussion with Eskom about the cession of those contracts to us.
So that's not signed and sealed as yet?
Not as yet. We still have to have that discussion, yes.
Because I was just reading some of the chatter around Eskom, and they seem less convinced than perhaps Anglo-American would like them to be, and certainly you would like them to be, that this is a done deal from their perspective.
I am convinced that we will do this deal. I'm convinced in that looking at those conditions, we still have to spend time with the Department of Mineral Resources in terms of Section 11, Eskom with the contracts, and then the third one is Competition Commission, obviously. So I'm confident I'll work hard in ensuring that we deliver these CPs.
Coal quality? Tick.
We'll work on that.
So, I mean, you say you work on that. So the coal
No, coal
quality is concerned?
contracts.
I mean, the coal quality that
Yes.
you can provide from the 4 collieries that you bought.
Well,
is it of sufficient quality? That's not an excuse for Eskom to discontinue a contract.
No. If you look at the coal mines are tied to those power stations. I mean, Letabo is right next to New Val. Tutuga is next to New Denmark, and Krill is next to Krill. So it's mine to mouth. Those contracts are linked to that, and then we have several opportunities with the closed collieries to look at those as to whether is there an opportunity to reopen them.
How complicated is that process? Because we know with deep level mining, once you mothball a mine, reopening it becomes sub-economic because of the deterioration that happens underground. Coal mining open cast seems a lot simpler.
Well, we have the skills in South Africa. We have competent people who will help us from a technical side to look at those mines closely and see as to whether there's an opportunity to reopen them.
What's the end game? Well, you've got 4 partners who, have you taken equal stakes in the venture?
Each, yes.
25 each. How much cash have you each put into this venture?
Well, enough to cover the equity side of the 2.3 billion.
And how much is the equity side of the 2.3 billion?
We cannot discuss that at this point, please.
But you're in for hundreds of millions each?
We are into decent money, if I may put it that way. And beyond that, the end game, Bruce, is to create a black-controlled mining group.
So coal is the first.
Coal is the first
base.
one.
Is the base.
The base, these 3 assets. And beyond that, we are looking at other assets beyond coal.
And particularly, I mean, Anglo-American, we know, has got assets that it would like to relinquish as part of its global right-sizing that it's been doing. Yes. Kumba Iron Ore, they seem keen to get out of iron ore. Well, certainly they were at the last strategic review. Is that in the?
We are looking at those opportunities. If we're looking beyond Anglo. If South 32 came with an opportunity, if Glencore came with an opportunity, and any other, we would look at bulking up this group, but obviously not with wrong assets, but assets that will create value for shareholders into the future. Maybe a listing at some stage.
Okay, but I mean, looking at the environment in which you're operating, we are on the very precipice of total sub-investment grade, call it junk if you like. Mm-hmm. This is potentially playing into your hands, provided you can access the capital you need.
Yes.
Disinvestment, Barclays style 1987,
exactly,
plays into the hands of local entrepreneurs like yourselves.
It does play into the hands of entrepreneurs. In every calamity, there's an opportunity, and we see an opportunity. This is the right time to acquire assets. We never thought when we signed this agreement or acquired these assets now, we'd be in this status in terms of the rating agencies.
But you describe it as a calamity.
I'm saying the world views it as a calamity. Nobody wants to see themselves in a junk status.
Do you feel it's a calamity? I mean,
no, not at all.
You're chairman of the Chamber of Mines?
Not at all. I see us going through this difficult moment as a country, but I believe we'll get out of it. We are a resilient nation.
We are a resilient nation, but we've got a new finance minister who's going on a global road trip, or to the US anyway, to try and convince ratings agencies that the status quo remains in place. Yet his economic advisor publishes 1,400 words in the Sunday Times on Sunday, in which he mentions radical economic transformation and white monopoly capital. White monopoly capital gets mentioned 36 times in a relatively short space. Growth. Economic growth, inclusive growth, not once, 0 times. This is the economic advisor to the finance minister.
I've listened to that. I am concerned, and it's so unfortunate that such things happen, but it doesn't stop us as entrepreneurs, as South Africans, to try and rebuild this economy, to try and create opportunities for our people, create jobs, and make sure that we participate in the mainstream of this economy.
What's interesting is the NUM and Solidarity both have welcomed the fact that you're coming in as investors. They see you as stable, long-term investors. It's good to have local capital, local entrepreneurs, black-owned companies in South Africa. Does it mean that you treat the unions any differently to the way in which other capital might have treated unions?
Not at all. We are happy that, obviously, that's been welcomed. Obviously, the unions are seeing the opportunities that we see in this industry, and we believe that as part of growth in this industry, not only the broader economy, the mining industry, then you talk about the communities within which we will be operating. I'm convinced that the unions are seeing that we're seeing great opportunities.
How important is this as a black South African businessman to make this work?
Bruce, for me, this is critical. We have to make this work. Why? Because in 1994, this country changed from the difficult times we went through with apartheid, and we welcomed a democratic society, a democratic country with a great constitution. And whilst we're facing the challenges I've spoken about in the political space, I believe from a business point of view, we need to build or create a new agenda driven by us as South Africans.
Okay, now this is important because what we had was the CEO initiative, which was very successful up until a point. I'm not saying it's fallen apart, but I get a sense that it's very frayed at the edges. A lot of businesses, established businesses, trust in the collaboration that business committed to, that Labour committed to, and that National Treasury on behalf of government had committed to, not in tatters, but is in a serious state of flux. Do you commit to that sort of interaction, or do we need a new kind of a different interaction?
I'm the president of the Chamber of Mines. We participate in the CEO initiative. We're part of the mainstream in terms of engaging with government in trying to ensure that we bring this back on stream. I'm confident that we will be back on the table, but obviously we cannot ignore the developments that took place in this country in the past 3 or 4 weeks.
Have you had a conversation since he's been appointed with the new Finance Minister, Malusi Gaba?
Our team have met with him, and Mr. Roger Baxter, the CEO of the Chamber of Mines, when I was not available, he attended several meetings at NEDLAC.
And his feedback?
The feedback is that obviously he's positive, that the messages we're getting, it's still early days, the messages we're getting from the minister are positive, but you're right, there are some things that we need to start talking about: inclusive growth, the future of this country, creating jobs, and that's it.
What about the Mineral Resources Minister, the relationship there? He's a minister who at the mining indaba in Cape Town last year, 15 months ago, was promising all sorts of great things about policy certainty and about providing clarity and getting investors excited about the opportunities in the South African mining environment. Has he achieved any of those?
Bruce, we are still negotiating. We're involved in discussions to make sure that the MPRDA amendment bill becomes act, signed off and completed. We're looking at the Mining Charter 3, the discussions are going on. Number 3, you know there's a court case in terms of the declaratory order between us as the mining industry and the Department of Mineral Resources. So we are involved in negotiations, it's continuing.
Now, if you look over your shoulder there, there's a kudu horn which sits on a plinth here at the JSE. When do you blow that horn as a CEO of a listed Seriti Resources?
Sooner than you expect, maybe.
6 months is my expectation. Sooner than that?
Let's see.
Mike Teke, he is the chief executive of the newly created Seriti Resources, a collection of 4 big investors putting their own money into South African mining at a time where, understandably, many global investors are beginning to feel just a little bit itchy and scratchy about that. But great empires have been built in South Africa at times of crisis, at inflection points, and it's when entrepreneurs can take a longer-term view, look through the crisis, that potentially good things can happen. That's it from the MoneyMakers. My thanks to Mike Teke, who is the chief executive of Seriti Resources. Till next time on the MoneyMakers, thanks for watching. Goodbye.